Hey guys, we're here at a new listing that we have, 534 and 536 Legion Street here in the village of Laguna Beach. Super cool property, super special history for me personally. This was Chris Abel's original office. It used to be located at 850 Glenary. They relocated it in 1971 and then added on a second residence to the back of it, creating this duplex. So this is a Chris Abel duplex. We're lucky enough today that Chris's son Gregg, an architect himself, also legend in his own right here in Laguna Beach. He's been kind enough to carve out a little bit of time, walk us through his dad's property, office, maybe generate some memories and some thoughts of their experience here in Laguna Beach and this property specifically. So let's go see what Gregg's got to say and what he can remember about this.
The original deal was that this little house was on the corner right next to Rue Cafe and by that little driveway. And of course, Leonard Kaplan was next door.
Yep.
His son Adam still owns the property there where Rue is.
Okay.
And Leonard was a famous artist. So my dad had this little house here right on the corner. He made it into his office. It was a house.
Okay.
And then when he was hired by his friend from Capistrano to do Capo Bank, they had to tear everything down and build that bank that's there now.
Yep.
So he moved this house on a flatbed truck here, and he moved in, made it into a home, where before it was a house. So there wasn't a kitchen in his office at the time. We had tore that all out. There was room for probably 4 desks for various drafting individuals in the building, including myself.
Okay.
Kirk Saunders worked for my dad. Rand Hughes, who started working for my dad when I was 14 years old in San Clemente.
Yep.
Because my dad was there for about 20 years, Marcus.
Yeah.
So this was moved here, and he made it into his first home here in Laguna.
Yep.
Designed the one in the back and then moved upstairs. And that was his first spot to be with family and friends in Laguna because, my family's been here since 1937. 86 years, Marcus.
Fantastic.
So it started with my grandpa, my grandma. They're from Denmark, and they brought the 5 kids in from Denmark in about 1934. Slowly moved to California from New York.
Okay.
Stopped in the Midwest, of course, because the Midwest is famous for being a Viking state.
Yep.
My son's there now, living in Nebraska.
Okay.
His father and mother-in-law are Danish and Norwegian.
Yeah.
How about that,
Yeah,
Marcus?
exactly.
Yeah. So then he moved here, and then the whole family came here, and my dad started working. He's self-trained architect till I was 20.
Okay.
He's doing drafting at a drafting business in Laguna. I mean, San Clemente, excuse me. And then he got his license around when I was like 20 years old.
Because I remember your dad as a kid. My dad, Morris, obviously
Yeah.
growing up, and I'm
Sure.
this kid, I followed my dad around all over
Yeah.
the place. And
Yeah.
your dad was my dad's hero,
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then it goes, and then it
Yeah.
goes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then so to me, growing up with Chris was the guy.
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
because he trained so many young guys in his office that became architects later on in their lives.
Yep.
And so Weston and Whitfield were one. Of course, like I said to you about Kirk Saunders. His first start, Marcus, was a guy, Jim Cummings, had a bunch of property in Alta Vista.
Okay.
Way up at the top.
Yep.
Did about 3 of those for this guy, and that brought my dad back into Laguna. Probably 10 of my dad's houses up there, but the ones on the left coming up Alta Vista, besides the Kite House, they're on the left coming up too.
Well, okay, let me just tell you, because you're a super special person to me growing up as well, growing up here. We've both been here for a while, and I've kind of grown up watching you grow up in a sense, and come into your own as a legendary architect of your own. This is a super special place for you too, but even for me, and I get emotional with this stuff, so bear with me sometimes, but this is a place where my mom owned this place in the 80s and the 90s, and I had just graduated from college. My mom owned this, and I moved in here. I moved into the back unit, and then she found a real tenant and moved me out, and I got to move down here, and I lived down in this lower unit for 3 years.
Story, Marcus.
Fell in love with Tammy here, still married. So just that whole thing to me, when you were willing to come up here and talk to me about this, I'm just like, there's so much history here for you, but me too, even more with my personal connection with Tammy and what happened here. And
it's so nice to hear that.
It was
Marcus.
a neat deal.
Well, Laguna Beach is a community where everybody knows one another
Yeah.
through some connection to other families.
Yeah.
That's what makes Laguna so unique. It's not just because it's a tourist attraction because of the beach.
Yeah.
It's the history of the community, the art community,
Yep.
the architecture, all the nice people. When you walk through town, everybody knows one another, wave to each other,
Yeah.
they help you out.
You can feel that.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
It's part of this unique.
Can we walk through?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Was this an office here in this
It
location?
was part of the office because his main drafting table is here, and his conference table to talk to clients was over there. There's this little seating, quite lovely, and then in this whole row here, Marcus, all the way back, was a row of drafting tables. There's enough room.
Was that In this location
Yes.
on Legion, or was that over on Glenary?
On Glenary.
Okay, but when it got here, it was a house.
He made it back into a house.
Yeah.
He put the
Okay.
kitchen in, gets up the bedrooms and all that, but when he made it into his office,
Yeah.
it was all drafting.
Yeah.
This would be something from my grandpa.
How is that here? That was just sitting on this
That's
thing.
amazing that he left it here all those years. It's been here a long time.
I don't know. I don't know if that was from the tenant or it happened to be something of yours.
Well, I have some of these at my house because I inherited all the all the carving tools
Yep.
from my ancestors. Mons Abel, famous wood carver in town, did all the wood carvings, and Pop Abel, also wood carver. He started in Denmark, in Copenhagen. And I inherited some 100-year-old carving tools, both from my Uncle Mons and my grandpa, and these are handmade.
Nobody's living here, and that's sitting on the kitchen.
It's definitely something left over from when my dad was here.
Yeah.
He got it from his dad. And you can see the post and beam style my dad was famous for, because once he started working in town and doing what he could, he did a lot of that post and beam. You see it a lot downtown at the Lumberyard Plaza. That's a big structure down there.
My wife, her dad, his dream was to have a Chris Abel house, right? He had self-made guy. Wow. His dream was to have a Chris Abel house. He hires Chris Abel to build his house up on Crestview.
On Crestview. Oh.
So he builds 2097 Crestview, I believe is what the address was. And Rand was the primary architect there. So Tammy's dad not only loved your dad, but he had a real special bond with Rand as well, because they did that. That was in the late 70s.
Yeah, Rand was with my dad forever.
Yeah.
So
and then Rand ultimately, when your dad was gone, Rand ended up working with my dad.
Yeah.
So for a number of years.
Yeah.
And again, just when you mentioned his name, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, and he worked in my office too.
And so this fireplace over here, okay, your dad was known for this kind of thing. That was one of his trademarks, is that fireplace.
Yes,
so talk to me, what do you know about that?
Well, my dad did these things before they were required to be permitted.
Okay.
He just designed them and make them,
Okay.
and watch out for the heat.
Yeah.
Because part of the issue was putting it in a bed of rocks protected the floor of sorts.
Yeah.
You know, because you can imagine how hot this thing would get when you put the fire in that.
Yeah.
But my dad would have these custom made and designed. Did them all the time. Really did. He's
Yeah.
famous for it. I've done probably at least a dozen restorations of my dad's houses.
Yeah.
And some of that's been trying to fix these things so they can still be used.
Yeah.
Because you up there on Alta Vista to the kite house.
Yeah.
There's a fireplace right in that wedge right there they designed, and you can see through the view.
Yeah.
Also the half timber one that. All the trusses on Alta Vista down below, the two girls bought that.
Yeah.
And
I know which one you're
Julie
talking about.
Lawton's working on that
Yeah.
one. That had a fireplace right facing the ocean where all the glass is.
Right.
It caught on fire one time on the bottom, and it started burning out the wood below. And they had to stop it all, and get it all repaired.
Yeah.
And they moved the fireplace, obviously. Part of the fun,
Yeah.
it's really neat,
All right.
You can see these doors here, Marcus, are like the original ones.
Yeah.
And these cabinets here are all part of the original house.
Crazy.
Isn't it amazing stuff?
Yeah. Cool.
Plank flooring, my God.
Yeah.
Jeez, think about that there, Marcus.
I know. All right, so here's where we broke in these jealousy windows. These are still, we
Yes,
still
you
got
did.
it. House relocators from Garden Grove, apparently.
Yep.
I think it was a $22 permit to move that house
Over
to
there.
here.
Yeah.
Right? And then this house is added onto it.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And it's common. One thing about moving structures you may not know about, Marcus, but two structures in town were moved by my dad.
Okay.
Okay, listen up. The Giovanni Dental Building on Glenary, just to south of Lingo, was moved in two sections off of Broadway by my dad on flatbeds, brought down Glenary and backed in and dropped off there and made into that and redone with the structure and the decks off the alley in the back.
Yeah.
That was the hotel that was there right next to Whole Foods. And the other one is the one that's got the Vietnamese restaurant by Pearl, that long building behind Mozambique.
Yeah.
That was the other hotel that was next door to the Italian restaurant, right where all the parking is. Two sections moved by my dad off of Broadway, taken all the way down Coast Highway and backed into that property.
It's so funny, the recollection of how that building arrived as a kid, it's very gray. Because my dad's office was right across the street from that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it came. And now that makes sense.
Yeah,
Totally.
think about that. Crazy,
It's crazy. All right, let's go upstairs.
Yeah, this is a classic Chris Abel.
It is.
Famous for his mitered butt joint glass, and he got that from Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
Frank Lloyd Wright was his favorite architect.
So when you were kids and you guys went on trips, What would you do? Did you go on trips with family or dad?
Not too much. We didn't travel that much. Traveled locally into Mexico and all that because we had family. My other side of my family has Latino blood in it, and then I've got the Danish side and mother. I'm half Viking, right?
Yeah.
No, my dad just stayed put right here and was so busy.
I've always admired your dad's green and green kind of feel, the wood and some of that stuff.
Yeah, he did.
And I've loved that. And so, but me as a kid of an architect growing up, and whenever we would travel, honestly, it was like we would get to go to look at details of things. We would not look at the things that we think were cool. We'd get to go to churches and look at corbels, and we'd go to eaves and look at the details of everything. We're like, Dad, wait, we want to see the Eiffel Tower. We want to see the Baines.
Well, my dad was famous for details. He was self-trained. He just was a self-trained designer. But I'm not a licensed architect. I'm just an architectural designer. But my dad was self-trained and was doing it on his own for like 20 years. Then he passed his test. It's amazing. But he would do all this design work. But he was trained in respect for my dad's family. Pop Abel actually designed about 4 houses in Laguna Beach. My grandpa.
Wow.
Which I bet you've never seen those. I can show them to you sometime,
I would
Marcus.
love that, honestly.
Little tiny things that my grandpa did, and little wood carvings on the doors and stuff. So my dad was trained with art. 3 of his 5 kids were artistic. My dad, my Uncle Mons, and my Aunt Beerta was famous in the Hobbit Center there.
Yeah.
There was a little.
Who's your Aunt Beerta?
Beerta was a tool painter, and she worked for Pottery Place there.
Yeah. You have a son who's in woodworking?
My son is the 6th generation wood carver and also a very, very fine artist. A graduate from LCAD in the Canyon, which of course LCAD in the Canyon was designed by my dad.
Yep.
And my daughter graduated from LCAD as well.
Yep. So
Tristan's a very famous painter and also a wood carver. He was in the Sawdust Festival for about 3 years. Did his work there. I was in the Sawdust Festival when it was first opened. Remember where that parking space is down there on Glenary, underground up above and below?
Yeah.
That used to be a big mound of dirt, Marcus.
Yep, remember that.
And we used to step up the steps to the Sawdust Festivals on the top dirt up there.
Yep.
You had to build your own booth by yourself. Still do, somewhat.
Yeah.
And I did mine at the Sawdust Festival when they moved out the canyon. Yeah, my son's still involved. And now my grandkids, my daughter's son, Sterling, he's such an artist. Today, he brought it into me, because St. Patty's Day is coming up pretty soon, my wife's Irish. Today he brought up his drawing of a little...
Oh my God, look at that.
A little Irish, look at this guy. He did this right here.
But you guys, like that?
He brought that upstairs this morning to show us, before we got out of bed, he always comes upstairs, so they live at our house. Isn't that cute?
But you can tell that guy's got talent with that.
Marcus,
oh my God.
He's on fire, man. Back in Omaha where my son lives, his son, a Ryder, is a good little sketcher too.
Let's go upstairs, take a look.
Look at this thing, man. Needs some love, doesn't it, Marcus?
It does, for sure. It needs somebody to come and really appreciate it and put it back, and it would be unbelievable.
There's a reason why these treads are pressure treated.
Yeah, this was the stuff, like my mom did this stuff, right? And these countertops, she kind of tried to, grout with these pine floors.
Oh, it's amazing, these floors. And this built-in area here, Marcus, he would always entertain us at Christmas time. The Christmas tree was right here on this wall.
Yeah.
And we'd all be around family, because he always liked to do his little island to be part of the family.
Yeah.
He always started that process, Marcus, called a great room, which is popular now, where you're connected to the dining area with family.
Yeah.
Here's the table, here's the sit of the bar, little bar stools, called the great room.
Yeah.
So almost all of my clients, when I design their houses for them, they want a great room. They don't want a separate dining room set away.
Yeah.
And these miter glass doors, he learned that from Mr. Frank Lloyd Wright. And it's interesting, about 10 years ago, Marcus, I was doing some repairs, and you can't replace those with dual glazed glass, because dual glazing has a metal trim all the way around it. So you put it together, you have this piece of metal there, looks like hell.
Yep.
The city approved 1/2-inch tempered glass to replace the 1/4-inch tempered. I had it approved 10 years ago. So any of my buddies that do this butt joint glass, 1/2-inch thick, tempered.
Yeah, the Chris Abel law. The
They
Chris
want it.
Abel, right?
Yeah, that's right.
To accommodate the Chris Abel detail.
Yeah, and this view here was breathtaking.
Well, again, I remember when my mom owned it, and I had just gotten out of college, right? And this was decked out. It was a penthouse, right? It was nice. All this stuff was just redone, and I got lucky enough. It was empty. I'm like, Mom, I'll rent it from you for. I rented it for $1,000. Downstairs was $1,200, which was great, but it was like a penthouse, and it was super cool.
Look at this structure, and this double grabber detail. Chris Abel was really famous for. These double grabbers were structural beams, but they could be attractive and not just a post and beam. So you can see how they're all engaged.
Right.
You go to any of his projects, he'd either do a double grabber post that would hold a beam in the middle, or reverse.
Exactly.
He does them all over, Marcus.
Yeah.
And that was something that he also got in from Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture, because it also was a structurally very stable condition. When you could bolt those together and get them really strong,
Yeah.
if you needed a diagonal brace, guess where it went? From here and up into that slot. Like this.
So yeah. So this place, to me, with the history that it has, it's not on the inventory. It doesn't have any historical relevance from the city's perspective right now.
No.
What do you think with your experience? Because to me, I look at it and go, God, if you wanted to create something here,
This
you
should be
could.
a piece of history, Marcus, because you've got the one that was moved off of Glenary.
Yeah.
That was history to begin with. Dad's history in the city of Laguna Beach. Then he built this one right after that. His career was really perking at that point.
Yep.
They should, because if they take like that post-in liquor, which is not particularly attractive, it's
Yeah.
just supposed to mean it's okay,
Yeah.
but these things are much more attractive. They could say not only is it historically charming, but it's historically part of Laguna Beach. That little house down there.
How much came out of this house? You know,
Yeah.
there's the relevance of who lived there, what happened
Yeah.
there, what was the
Yeah.
significance of the occupants. And
Exactly right. And think about it too. My dad was not married at that time. He had a girlfriend that was here with him. So because he had a couple of different marriages in Laguna Beach. There was a gal that lived with him here for a while. I love this stuff here. Sorry, those stakes will block a little view, but I don't know if it's been approved.
It did. It got denied,
It
and they're going to redo it and pull it back
Yeah.
and lower it a bit.
I remember that little cottage down there years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's just crazy, Marcus. These guys bought these and moved them on the street. That is one of them.
Yeah.
They added on to them over the years.
And from Bluebird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they brought them from Laguna, from LA during the Olympics
Yep.
in the 30s, late 30s, and brought them down on trucks and plopped them all along Park and everything.
And then did they put some in Bluebird Canyon too?
They did,
right?
and I did the one over on Avalon and in Seaview. Right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
The house I remodeled on Seaview and Avalon is almost finished because he ran out of some money. But the one I did first was connected to him was Olympic Cottage.
Wow.
They moved them everywhere, Marcus.
So cool. This kind of stuff in Laguna, you know, and we're lucky enough. This is legendary stuff. I mean, people don't get this, and for him to be able to do this with us and willing to do it.
Yeah, and
thank you.
And the Skandarian family is part of the history of Laguna Beach too. I mean, I see your dad all the time, and I like hanging out with him. He and Stephanie. I saw him down at City Hall yesterday. He looked great. Steph's a nice lady.
Yeah, super cool. It's
Yeah,
neat.
it's nice,
But
yeah.
you growing up, Chris, being that to me, he was like this Santa Claus figure almost.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, he was these architects. Like, even my dad's a character. I know your dad, Mark Singer.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
all those guys.
It's really cool.
Well, I went to my dad's funeral, you know, when he passed away. I did it down there where the art affair is now, right? June Neptune owned it, and then she said, Greg, I want you to redesign the whole thing, make it a plaza. So I did the whole front, the whole thing, which made it into an art show place.
Yep.
But at the time, it was just a vacant area with only places for weddings in the back, where there was a kitchen back there and her little shop in the back corner, you know, the little tiny building.
Yep.
I went to my dad's funeral, and I'm up there, whole crowd's out there for Chris Abel, and I'm looking across there, and I'm going, wow, all those girlfriends in the audience. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And his wife was still with us.
Yeah, I remember your dad's office being at Nye's Place,
That's right. That's where
and,
it was.
and that is a building very similar to this kind of feel
post
too.
and beam, really nice, and the three houses next door.
Yep.
And the one closest to the commercial building, what they use for parking for Drake,
Yep.
that was my dad's house. So the stairs go down the back of the house and up, and you go up the stairs to his office. I think 9 different drafting tables in that office.
So cool.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I was with Donna Ballard last night at this art installation thing down there at City Hall, and just that, knowing I was going to interview you today, and I remember Blair Ballard and growing up and all that stuff as a kid.
It's such a part of our community.
It's really neat.
There was like about 6 architects in Laguna Beach that were the anchors of the first start of growing out.
Yeah.
When my dad started in San Clemente, there was like 3 down there.
Yeah.
That's it. Rasmussen, Jensen, Chris Abel, and also one other guy.
Ole Hansen.
Ole Hansen, all Scandinavians.
Yeah.
In San Clemente.
Okay, it's funny you mention this because we talk about that feeling in the Scandinavian and Danish, and I heard this word the other day called hygge. Have you heard about
Hygge,
this?
yeah.
Right? Hygge. You say it. You say it the right way. I don't know how to say it.
Hygge.
But it's funny that concept, which is kind of, I'm interpreting it as community, togetherness.
Being together, it's hug like a hug.
Yeah.
Hygge, yeah.
But that theme has come up for whatever recently, a lot lately, and I'm just like kind of what we're talking about, you know. And Laguna to me is very much.
Oh yeah.
Somebody introduced me to that word 3 weeks ago. It's just
really?
crazy. I'd never heard of it. Now all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God.
That's
it's
a
right
Scandinavian piece of history. You know?
Right here, what you're walking into. Careful, it's been used as a litter box lately, but. That bathroom is pretty Chris Abel.
My sister, Lark Abel,
Okay.
is a famous sandblasting carved artist. She
Okay.
sandblasts and carves glass. Could have been one of my sister's pieces of work.
Yeah.
She did that and all that different work.
I'll bet it
It
was.
could be, because she's done some in town too, a lot of places. And there's that blue tile you
Yeah.
talked about, the same as the orange, same company.
Yep.
He was famous for using this material.
Yeah, Greg, because any of the owners, since you guys owned it, would not have put that glass in there.
No,
You
no,
know,
not
it
at
was
all.
my mom and now Phyllis, who owns it now.
Uh-huh.
They wouldn't have put that in.
And that was the sand garden with, in the old days. Do you remember, but didn't it have cacti in here at
It
one
did.
time? Yeah,
It did. When I first
Succulents.
came in, there were some succulents in there for sure. But then in here,
Yeah.
I love this little
That patio is so nice.
courtyard here, which
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
Over the roof of the old building there.
Well, and I think it still leaks. Right?
It needs, because the rain comes from the southwest always, and this does leak. You see how bad the damage
Yeah.
is. This is needing some help here.
The whole thing is definitely needs somebody with some patience and some love and appreciation for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
Yeah.
how private! What a great little space
Oh
to
yeah,
have.
it was
you
very
know?
private with the tree right there and the lower house there and this beautiful view here.
Yeah, fun stuff, Greg.
Piece of history, dude.
Super cool. We walk in it every day, and we
Yeah.
don't take a moment to really appreciate it. And when
Yeah.
I got to do this listing, I'm like, wait a minute, there's history here. There's a story.
Absolutely, Marcus. It's
So-
great.
And I feel like realtors, all we do is sell, sell, sell. But it's more than that. It's like what's the experience we're selling?
Actually, it's true. Some houses are just standard houses, sort of simple, unless you know who designed it. These are special.
But this experience preparing for this interview for
Mm-hmm.
me, and I do this often with a lot of the homes I work on. I go down, I look at the city file, I pull it, I start
Yeah.
looking. Who's lived there? What's
Yeah.
happened? Who are the people who've worked on it? But even going through this and seeing your dad, I remember your dad's signature as a kid. Like, oh my God, yeah, exactly. And seeing those names in the files, like the people you've grown up with.
Yeah.
Reviewing those files. That's
Right here.
You probably see your dad's name. I see my dad's name all the time in
Oh,
there. And it's
yeah.
just like, oh my gosh.
Go down
you
and
know?
say, who did this house?
Yeah.
And say, oh, it's your dad.
But it made me think, going, that's what we should be selling, is the history of these houses,
Yeah.
the experience of what they've meant to people. Not, hey, how much we
Yeah.
can push it, and we just flower it up with so much BS. Tell the real story, and I think it sells
Well,
itself.
these pieces of architecture that your dad did, my dad did, some of the guys back in town, Aubrey St. Clair. I'm doing a remodel in El Camino del Mar for the one on those two half timber houses. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And this is Aubrey St. Clair, who designed City Hall and the Water District.
Yeah, so cool.
Try and match that architecture. Be careful. Don't
I
make
know.
a statement. Just be sure it looks lovely.
Yep.
Which I did.
Yep.
Still got some corrections from City Hall, of course. I mean, it's crazy. You know, think about it. It's like, I've tried to match the architecture. Well, there's a lot coverage issue.
Yeah.
I'll be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
They'll be nice to me.
Super cool. Thank you so
Marcus.
much for the time.
Yeah, man.
Number one, just to get to know you even more. Like,
you.
I know you, we see each other all the time, but not at this
This
level.
is great, man. I like it.
Thank you so much for being willing to
The first time I've
do
been
it.
able to engage with you, Marcus, because I see your dad all the time. I love him, and I see your cousin,
Yep, exactly.
Todd, all the time.
Yep.
Great guy.
Super.
Can't
Super.
hide this nice group of people. You know, I mean, it's just nice. You know.
Well, thank God. Like,
Armenian families are so nice. I've got some other members of my years and past are Armenian. I love being with them, and I see Todd, I see you and your dad. It's like,
it's fun. It makes it.
yeah.
I don't know.
And
I
there's-
just kick
there's-
myself sometimes.
Well,
Getting to do this. This is
Yeah.
our life. Are
well, you do a
kidding?
good job, Marcus. You had a good
It's fun.
reputation, man.
Thank you.
Didn't like
You too, obviously.
yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. It's neat that our families had good reputations to follow.
They did.
If they had a shitty reputation and we'd
Yeah.
have to come back and
Make excuses. no.
recreate that here in town, that would be difficult.
No. The
So,
only reputation my dad had was just his lady friends.
yeah, I think
Lots
my
of
dad
them.
probably had some of that.
One of
too.
his girlfriends came in from Hawaii. She has her last house, Arlene Hamlet. She has a house up on Pala, her last home. My dad was married to her for a while. I did a house for her up there on Alta Vista. She came in from Hawaii. She has a farm on the main island. Here I'm meeting this gal that I knew as a little kid.
yeah.
She's walking into my, oh boy. Another girlfriend, Marcus. Oh my God, it's crazy, dude. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Greg.
Hey, buddy, you got it.